give a round of applause for Alejandro Carbonet, who is the co-founder and CEO of Green Urban Data. Welcome to the stage, Alejandro. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next, we're going to welcome, joining us by live stream. Yes, we are a cloud-based conference. Please welcome to the screen, Gabi Kaminski, the Managing Director of CityZone. Welcome, Gabi. Okay, we're going to get, hey, fantastic. Bienvenidos, excellent. Now, let's welcome Geronimo van Schendel Erithe, the CEO of Buildia and Academic Director for the Master in Business for Architecture and Design at IE. Welcome, Geronimo.
Thank you.
Thank you. Round of applause. Thank you very much. We'd like to welcome our speakers. And finally, last but not least, please welcome to the stage the Product Strategy and Innovation Director at Cellnex, Jose Antonio Aranda. Welcome, Jose.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Okay, Alejandro, the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you. We are pop stars, huh? Okay, rock stars too. Okay. Well, first, I'd like to thank to South Summit organization for counting on me to be the moderator of this roundtable, and we are going to talk about the future of the building, the future of the cities, and how we are going to build this future in the cities. I think this is very important, this topic, because currently cities are cause, are solution of one of the most important challenges that have the humanity today and fight against climate change. Okay. In this way, I'd like to, for everyone, to do a short introduction of themselves, okay? And at the end, I will let you know what is the emoji that you use most, okay?
What is it? Could you repeat that?
Emoji.
Oh, the emoji.
Okay. Okay. For example, my name is Alejandro Carbonet. I'm CEO of Green Urban Data. My company helps cities to adapt climate change through technology. I am all day putting out little fires in the different departments of my company. My emoji is the smiley face with a drop of sweat on the forehead. Okay? Geronimo.
Well, I'm Geronimo. I'm an architect by training, and I'm the CEO of Buildia. We do digitization of procurement for the construction industry, and I'm also the academic director of the Master in Business for Architecture and Design at IE. And my emoji is yes, which I think is very important to be, always positive in this world of entrepreneurship.
Perfect. José Antonio.
Hello, my name is José Antonio Aranda. I am a Director of Innovation and Product Strategy within Cellnex. So Cellnex is an infrastructure company. So we produce the towers where the mobile operators put their antennas. Our biggest tower is the Piruli, Torre España, and we are well known because of that tower. And what is my favorite emoticon is also the same as you, someone smiling, because I really see that when you smile at someone, you would receive a smile back. And that's why I like that emoticon. Also, turn it a little bit with the drops, teardrops as well, because that means that you're having fun.
Okay, okay. Gabi, it's your turn. Oh.
It's on.
Are you mute?
We cannot hear you.
My microphone is on. It's on.
I can hear you.
Gracias.
No, we. Okay, I'm sorry, Gabi. Okay.
No, you cannot hear me.
Now.
Okay, thank you very much. So my name is Gabi Kaminski. I'm the managing director of CityZone, which is a joint venture between Atidim Park, Tel Aviv, the Tel Aviv municipality, and the Tel Aviv University. That was founded to promote urban technologies that improve lives in cities. So we serve as the city's living lab, where various technologies are tested in a real-life district, and we operate the city's open innovation program, where startups working on solutions for municipal challenges, they run POCs with the local government and other partners from the private sector, such as Hyundai Motors or Dell Technologies. And my favorite emoji, I'll be less optimistic than my colleagues here in the panel, is the facepalm.
Okay. Thanks all. Well, as an architect, okay, I had always been interested in the how the cinema show us the future, no? In this case, the future of the cities. A movie that had a great impact on me, it was Blade Runner. Blade Runner with Harrison Ford was young, like me, okay? More or less. In this movie, is the first time in which I could see the cars flying around or near the buildings, people living with robots, and one thing that I impressed a lot, it was that in this movie, it was raining all time. This is, I made me think, is technology destroying environment, or will it be the solution? What do you think about that?
Well, thanks. I think that's a super interesting reflection. Actually, there was Norman Foster a few years ago. He was showing in a lecture some pictures that were called imaginations from an old tobacco company in the cigarette packages that would used to show what the world will going to be looking in 2020. It was flying trains and so on and so forth, as you just mentioned. So I think that's a way of thinking that is across the board in a way. But in the end, I believe that you mentioned technology for against environment or for environment. I think it's technology for environment with the enabler of collaboration. And I think if we look at smart cities initiatives, both the ones that orchestrate the environment of the city, which is the sum of parts, and as well the particular initiatives of startups, of corporations, what really makes cities that are successful in this transformation thrive is collaboration between the different agents. And we work, for instance, at the School of Architecture and Design with the Amsterdam Metropolitan Institute or the Smart City in Amsterdam, where there's this collaboration between definitely the technology that startups or corporations bring to the world, but also there needs to be the enabler to of regulation, of funds, of moving the mindset of people, and so on and so forth. So to stay with just one idea, I would claim that the most important thing to enable technology for environment is collaboration.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, so from my perspective that I work in the telecommunication industry, we see that each time we move towards a new generation, so we move from 2G to 3G, we move from 3G to 4G, and now that we are moving from 4G to 5G, the technology is more efficient. What does this mean? That a byte that was transmitted in 2G costed 10 times more than transmitted in 3G. And now it's the same thing. When we are moving towards 5G, the 5G is more efficient. And therefore, somehow, transmitting that information will impact less the environment. Also, if you take into account the telco industry themselves, they are committing as well to start introducing green power in their supply to their antennas, to their equipments, with commitments to have all the emissions net zero as well in the next few years. So I think that the technology and the companies providing technology are committed with the sustainability of the world. But also, what I really think is that technology is also introducing efficiencies that enables use cases that promote efficiency, promote sustainability. For instance, if we didn't have 4G or 5G, we wouldn't be able to have car sharing. And car sharing are benefiting that I have an application, I can communicate with someone, and therefore I can apply a little bit more efficiency and avoid having 2, 3, 4 cars additional to the ones that we have. But from that to any other applications that we have in mind, I think the technology is always introducing efficiency. Artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is here to improve processes, introduce more efficiency, and that makes people have to work less, and therefore less impact.
Thank you. Thank you. Good reflection. Gabi?
Yes, so I have to say that many of the challenges that Tel Aviv experiences are very similar to those that are faced by other major metropolitan areas around the world. And the challenges are various from mobility and transportation and infrastructure and city operations and security and accessibility and many others. And almost all of them are linked, of course, with environmental challenges. Some technologies being introduced into cities, of course, can have a detrimental effect on the environment. Now we're, for example, looking into what drones that operate in the city would probably be doing to the birds or maybe the bee population in the city. So these are some effects that we're trying to estimate. But the environmental agency of the city of Tel Aviv has come to us, to CityZone, with two major challenges that we're particularly interested in leveraging technology to help us overcome. So that's the flip side of the coin. One of them, for example, is the reduction of waste that goes to landfills. And the Tel Aviv municipality has done tremendously well in this aspect in recent years, and now we want to take it one step further. But on top of that, facing climate change, and that's linking directly to the Blade Runner metaphor, we need to see what can be done around the phenomenon of urban heat islands, where the human activity and the construction materials that we use in our cities make cities much hotter. So on top of just mobility electrification, which is covered by several projects in the city, and accurate monitoring of the environment inside buildings and outdoors as well, done by one of our portfolio companies called RadGreen, it's worth mentioning an extremely interesting company named BioShade, for example, that helps grow vines quickly and cheaply with a hydroponic system to be installed in the streets for biological shading and cover areas in which trees cannot be planted in the city, or trees will take maybe 8 to 10 years to provide decent shading. And with BioShade system, we expect to see great shade coverage within 1 or 2 months only, reducing temperatures by up to 10 degrees in the street. And this has, of course, the secondary effect of contributing to walkability and cycling and many other effects in our hot and humid city of Tel Aviv. So expected to take more cars off the street. So that's one example. Another shading project that we're supporting with technology in our lab is called Lumi Weave, winner of the C40 Women for Climate Challenge last year, where synthetic shading fabric is embedded with photovoltaic cells and LED lights to provide shading during the day and street lighting during the night in a very energy efficient way. So these are just a couple of examples how we leverage and harness technology to actually help us overcome environmental challenges and not just cause damage.
Thank you. Okay, in 2019, we lived was the worst experience of our lives. We lived locked down in our houses by the pandemic of COVID. We only could go out for the necessary. But at the same time, we began to appreciate this thing that before we didn't give value. Something like the sun on the skin, sun on the face, live near green areas, or breathe clean air. Okay, in Valencia, and sometimes we could smell the sea. It's amazing. Okay, do you think future cities take into account times lockdown into their planning, or that well forget the pandemic as it's never happened?
Well, I think, thank you for the question again. I think the pandemic has accelerated some things. Definitely, for instance, one of the keys we have experienced, I think, in every company, big or small, is the presence or the enabler, the possibility of the third space, the space that is not, home and not work. Of course, when we were confined, we were at home and we weren't at work. But now things that are moving are not getting back to normal or as it was before the pandemic itself. But there are, companies are restructuring the way they work and so on and so forth. And there are intermediate spaces of encounter, like, the first example would be co-workings. But how is that evolution into the future gonna be? It's just one example. So maybe, I believe this accelerates, the COVID accelerates some of the movements, but it's not that there's going to be a radically different way of being. Maybe, for instance, when companies start delocating or delocalizing their headquarters or moving to other places, they can start having spots in other alternative nodes, especially in big metropolitan areas that are closer to neighborhoods where there are several companies that can encounter, and that can generate another economy. If you bring that together with other tendencies, such as, for instance, the growth of e-commerce. Of course, it was already a trend, but it's been, increased. And what that creates in the tissue of retail at the level of, at the ground level in cities, or what happens with mobility, that, number of cars reduces, and that empties, some parking spots and so on. There are a lot of opportunities for adaptation in the city, which are generally have a slower process, because there's simply not the enablers to enact that change. Something like a parking that is full, you will never think about changing that use. Whereas if there's a reduction in the rate of usage, or whereas if the malls are decreasing by 20% their usage as well, then brains start thinking about that. That together with a new mindset about things that are possible can change a lot of things. But it's not that it's going to be a radical change from now to tomorrow. A last example would be what happened after the wars. For instance, the Piaggio example that used to produce aircrafts in the end, but then they used the technology to end up producing a scooter that was wonderful, right? And that changed a lot of things. But it wasn't that they just out of the blue thought, okay, let's do a scooter. It was the circumstance that sort of forced them to do that. So I think it's an accelerator, but it's not a radical shift in a way.
Okay.
Yes, I think that COVID has changed the way we behave in general. And we saw from the first day that the government told us, you need to stay at home. And people were shocked. So what do I do now? And the good thing is that I think as a country, we were prepared to face that challenge to keep people at home. One of the things that many people do not know is that we are one of the countries in Europe with higher penetration of fiber to the home. So we have more fiber than Germany, Italy, and France, and the UK together. And that makes us be proud that the services that we have been able to receive while at home could enable us to continue our way of living. Because in the past, and I'm working for a corporation, when I was going to the office and to the human resources department, I would say, I'm going to go home working. In Spain, wasn't that a reality. But now, home working is something that you take for granted. So, and now the city and buildings have to change that. So you need to look for a new bedroom to have your office. But you need to, and you're expected to have connection. And you're expected to have connections when in the past you only have connections for yourself or to watch TV from sometimes. Now you need to live with all your family, that you can be 2, 3, 4, 5 people connected together. So home working is something that has come to change. But also that has enabled people to say, why do I need to live in Madrid? If I'm home working, why don't I go to my town, to my village? And also, that makes the city environment changes, because people are not going to come to stay. They might go to co-working spaces, because they might just come a couple of days a week and then work. Also, I see that it has changed the education as well. So kids has to go to school, but from time to time they need to still come at home and change their behavior and have the teacher at home, and you connected and received classes, and that is changes as well. Why? Because schools needs to have a specific distance, needs to change the footprint, and we need to build more schools with a different profile. And also the social behavior. People are more keen now to work, and kids are more working from home, and that's something else also it's changing. So in the past, people used to go and play basketball, football, all the different sports, and be more out, but kids now are more at home. And we need to understand that this is a radical change of the city that will remain, fortunately, and that will grow and enable new opportunities to the city to offer new spaces with new functionalities.
Thank you. Interesting. Gabi?
Yes, so this question actually reminds me of something we published at the height of the pandemic, trying to estimate how the city would be like when all of this is over. And we mentioned, different solutions like Skylinks or RoadSense or Telecom that help us monitor the city for crowding or monitoring with green environmental conditions that are favorable to the virus incubation period. Or solutions connecting the elderly to young volunteers around them to help them get their groceries and medicine when they're confined to their homes. Nobody, by the way, was speaking about the loneliness, not just of the elderly, but actually the loneliness of young people that suddenly could not hook up with people in bars and the streets. So that created another trend that we started looking into. Solutions that enable people with disabilities to use technology to communicate with the world during social isolation, like 6 Degrees, which is another one of our companies, or SafeUp, which is a solution to strengthen the sense of security in empty and scary streets, especially for women here in Tel Aviv. So all these were solutions that started to adapt themselves to the realities of the pandemic while over here. During the height of the pandemic, but now as the vaccination rates in Tel Aviv keep increasing, we do see a careful trend of back to the office. People are looking for this social interaction. Also employers, and related to the future of workspace, employers are looking for ways to engage with their employees, because if I'm working from home, I'm completely a mercenary and I can switch employers very easily because I'm not connected, to the social environment in the office. So all these things, we do see a trend of going back to the office. It's very careful. And one of the key things we do see here in Tel Aviv is that people are still shying away from public transportation because they're afraid, of contamination and being catching the virus in a bus or a train. So the situation in our roads has deteriorated significantly. And we've actually launched a seminar with the Tel Aviv University School of Engineering to hear what ideas young students come up with and make crowded public transportation safer for people. So we're looking forward to see what they suggest.
Thank you, Gabi. Okay. Well, we're going to talk about smart cities. This is my opinion, okay? In my opinion, smart cities are focusing to improve the management of the public services, to be more efficient, to give technology to their population, or their citizens, for your day-to-day, okay? But when are smart cities going to take into account the health of their population?
Well, I think
it's in relationship with the
environmental collaboration.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when the smart city initiatives are approached from a systemic point of view, which means collaboration again between corporations, startups, institutions, educational institutions as well, there are a lot of opportunities. There's a huge portfolio of opportunities of where to put technology, actually. We tend to think about the most sophisticated examples and about the most technified cities as the examples of where to put that technology, but actually something like water control with a very simple, water quality device in the huge majority of cities of undeveloped countries or countries under development would make a radical change in the environment of their inhabitants. And it does require that vision, but there are a lot of lessons we can learn from cities that are a little bit more advanced on that level to bring that in. And it's not that rocket science, it's not science fiction in another way. So I think there are really opportunities when it's approached as a collaboration and as an open system. Yeah.
Yes. So I would like to take these questions from two angles. So first, health for the population, and I see that more and more cities are considering measuring pollution and implementing measures to condition the movement of people. Also, and we have seen this in the pandemic, more and more the governments are controlling flow of people to understand the movement of people, to see where they need to put specific resources, etc., and even in underground that they are cleaning the air. So from the point of view of small cities, I see that the cities have started being interested in the health of the population. And on the other side, if we go to the health sector, I see that a small cities concept has started entering into the health of the well-being of the people. And things very easy, like measuring different statistics in a house. We have, for instance, a project with a specific startup that has put sensors in the house to measure CO2, for instance, or temperature or humidity for the well-being of the person. And we have done this in houses with low incomes. Why? Because we have discovered that people that don't have money, they don't switch on the heating, and they don't switch on the air condition. But they don't realize that the government has a specific programs to pay for that, so they don't need to pay. These measurements can help them understanding that, listen, you don't need to live on 17 degrees in a house in winter. You can live in 25 degrees. So if you are able to involve the city, and what we have done is we have engaged the city so that the city, the social services receive that information. They can send someone and inform the person. Also, there is a very interesting sensor that this startup has put is the CO2. And we realize that CO2 increases the peak. And that's why they are putting heaties, hornillos, I don't know the word in English, but under the tables. And they are consuming more than just putting the heat. And we have seen a peak of CO2, and that means that the combustion of this is not working well. So you can warn, listen, before it happens something, just turn off that. So there are small measures that little by little you can tackle. And the last point I would like to mention is how you can impact from a smart city concept to the well-being of the people. And we see more and more that the new technologies will provide functionalities, and we have seen, for instance, startups measuring the health of the people, the well-being of the people. For instance, we have a project with a startup that they measure if they're going to have an attack, and before they have an attack, they warn, so the family are surrounded. So these kind of things are for the well-being of the people. And we do not need to go to these spectacular use cases that they say in 5G, that you have a remote doctor operating from a hospital. It's day-to-day activities, and there are more and more devices, healthy devices connected to people. They are already, even the smartwatch. I mean, they measure your pulse. There are specific devices that you can take blood and send it to your doctor. So I see that a smart city concept applied to health is something that is little by little growing, and we see a lot of potential of new startups developing on those two areas.
Thank you. Gabi.
Yeah, so the issue of public health in smart cities, in certain countries, discussing the pandemic, of course, it was proven that local government is sometimes much better equipped to deal with the pandemic compared to the central government. In Israel, there have been several cases of political tension between central and local government, but it is clear that city authorities have a lot to do in this sense. Particularly around areas in which crowding cannot be prevented. Specifically, I mentioned public transportation in the previous question, or the education system, where you have a lot of children which are currently not yet vaccinated. So everyone is still exposed. Another great example of what cities can actually do in that sense, for example, using the sewage system, which is under the control of the local authority. And an experiment here showed that there are indicators from the sewage system that can tell us about an outbreak of the pandemic in a certain neighborhood and direct us specifically maybe to the source of contamination. Building permits, the environmental analysis done around that. Now that we have many more systems deployed for environmental monitoring due to the pandemic, we can now continue leveraging them. You know, the pandemic is not the only public health issue that we have to face. There are many other public health issues that existed even before the pandemic, and we can leverage on a lot of the investment done around the pandemic to continue working on in other fronts as well. And naturally, last thing that smart cities are directly connected to public health operations is around emergency cases, where we can use, for example, drones and other means of transportation in smart mobility and future mobility, if it's to move around blood samples or organ donations or many other things that, you know, the emergency factor is crucial.
Thanks, Gabi. Time is running out. Only one thing. Thanks, Jerónimo. Thanks, Juan Antonio. Thanks, Gabi. It's been a pleasure to share
Likewise.
this moment with you. I hope that our reflection, your reflections, open our minds towards a better future. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias.